Well, you look pretty on the computer this morning.
Yeah, I've got the filter on.
You've got a glow about you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure what that means, but I hear there's a filter that makes you look better. So I use the filter.
You look good, man. Well, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Your
Snow's melting off.
it was. So as we're recording this, we had a little bit of a snowstorm here in Central Arkansas last night that I'm sure a lot of you got to experience. It's moving all across the country. So I am glad it's not hanging around for very long. I don't like it.
Yeah, I can do without. Thanks. Can do
Yeah.
without.
The dogs went out and frolicked in it, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks nice, but I don't want to impede. I don't want to impede me.
I mean, I can pull it up
Don't
on my.
inconvenience me, nature.
I
Don't
can pull it up on
inconvenience.
YouTube. Like I can, if I want to see a snowy, I've got a big TV that's a smart TV. If I want to see a snowy winter wonderland,
Yeah.
I'll just pull it up on YouTube.
Yeah, I've got ice cubes. What do I
Yeah.
need this trash for?
We know how this works. So speaking of how things works, welcome back. And we're going to tell you a little bit about how this little podcast we do works. This is episode 212 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And for those of you who are longtime listeners to the show, welcome back. For those of you who are new and this may be your first time joining us, welcome. We're glad you're here. What do we do? Who are we? We sit around and talk about the funny books because that's something that we really enjoy. It's a hobby of ours that we picked up on. It's what brought us together as friends, and we're going to share some of those things with you. So because of the snow, we opted to be safe and not drive. So we are recording this from the comfort of our own homes, but I do want to say, normally when we record, we are given space to record by our local comic shop, Kapow Comics, over in Sherwood, Arkansas. So even though we're not there this morning, shout out to those fine folks and thank them. Thanks a million to them for giving us that space to record in. And they're doing something really cool. They've been reaching out and get some visitors to come in in February, and I'm not sure what the date is. I'll have to do some better due diligence and look it up. But they have got Jason David Frank rolling in. Now, Matt, are you familiar with who Jason David Frank is?
Somebody told me he was a Power Ranger.
Yeah, he was the Green Ranger, man. In that first kind of really big hit series that I say hit series, it was a hit series in the United States that rolled over. But yeah, so if you're in Central Arkansas and you want to meet a Power Ranger, Kapow Comics can make that happen for you. Just stop in, find out when he's going to be there, sign up for it, do a meet and greet. It'll be awesome. Maybe he'll show you a move or something, or you can, maybe he's got deep and dirty secrets about Zordon that he'll share with you. Who can say? Who can say? But while you're there, you can also snag a few comics, just like we do every week. And then maybe you can come and talk about them with us on our various social media platforms, or just talk about them with your friends, because that's just cool. That's what's fun. And that's what we like to do. And so in the spirit of that, Matt, tell me about a couple books you read this week, man. Drop a short stack on me.
I'll tell you about three. So my short stack, number one of my short stack is from Aftershock. This is number 2, Maniac of New York, The Bronx is Burning.
Nice.
By Elliot Kalan and Andre Muti. Good book. It's just fun. Maniac killer on the loose. 2 female detectives who have pretty much been regulated to the case because nobody else wants it, and they're pretty much persona non grata. Each one of them are. So
Right.
It's a case that nobody wants to mess with, dumped on the lap of 2 detectives that nobody wants anything to do with. So plenty to go on there.
You've been kind of excited about this because I know you're a big fan of Andrea Moody's work.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with Elliot Kalan, so this may be the first thing I've read from that creator. But I really like this book. I mean, it's the ending of the first arc kind of gave an indication that maybe there's some new supernatural bend to this, but maybe not. So there's some legit. I want to know how this story ends, basically. Right. It's done a good job of getting my curiosity. Who is this maniac, and why is this happening, and how is it all going to be resolved? So it's also got some really relevant social commentary in it. I'll say nothing like too deep, but it's very like, oh God, yeah, that would happen. And it's mostly got to do with social media.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I'll just drop that cherry. So second on my short stack from DC is Robin and Batman by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. So this is 3 of 3 of this series. Did you read this?
I haven't read it yet, no, but I haven't had a chance to. It's on my stack.
So wraps up nice and neat. We learn basically why Killer Croc is in this story and what his motivations are. And essentially, it's just it's mostly an expose on Robin kind of figuring out his place on this team, right, and Batman to a certain degree as well, kind of warm, getting more, a little warmer to the idea of having a teammate in the field as opposed to a teammate back in the cave and what that really means. So yeah, that's a good story. I don't think it's anything people are going to be talking about for decades, but it's solid.
Right.
The third thing on my short stack is from Marvel. This is King Conan #2 by Jason Aaron, Mahmoud Asrar, and I believe that's Matthew Wilson. Yeah, for coloring. This is a lot of fun. Artwork is what Mahmoud Asrar has been doing. It's freaking awesome to look at. Right. It's just incredible to look at. I loved this issue. Really loved the kind of the flashbacks on what Conan's relationship with his son, his view in the world, his view of being what his view of being a leader is, which anybody who's halfway familiar with the character of Conan should absolutely surprise no one.
Right.
So there's no big, this is one of those character-driven stories that, in my opinion, Jason Aaron excels at. He just excels at character-driven stories. And this is another one of those examples. At least so far, he's delivering 100%. And I'm really interested to see where this goes based on issue #2. Issue #2's ending is even more compelling than issue #1. So that's always nice when the compelling nature of the story is ratcheted up per issue. That doesn't always happen. In fact, there's a lot of times it doesn't. So when it does,
a lot of times the series will peak in the first issue and just kind of plateau after that.
Yeah. So yeah.
I mean,
Did you read this one yet?
Yeah, I haven't. It's again next up on my list. I was gonna try to get to it last night in the middle of all the crazy town stuff, but I didn't make it. But I agree with you on what you're saying about Jason Aaron, especially when he can focus the story down on just a small number of characters. I think the Jason Aaron stories that I've read that I haven't liked as much are where he's spreading himself too thin across too many identities, too many archetypes. And I think case in point, the Avengers. I think that's where he loses it. But in books like The Goddamned, where he can focus it on, 1 to 2 characters, in a book like Conan, where he can just really get into, the barbarian or the mindset of whatever, damsel or, warrior woman he's with, that's where he really shines.
Yeah.
And he's doing it again in this book. It's like the first issue was, we talked about it. It was spectacular.
Yeah. And Asrar is really cranking his storytelling up to 11.
I'm probably going to end up buying a page. That's that's on my short list. And I mean, they're fairly decently priced. You can get a Mahmoud Asrar page, Conan page for $350-$400. So that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. I'm not saying that's not a lot of money, because trust me, it is. But in the grand scheme of comics pages, like in original art, that's about moderately priced.
Yeah. So that's not bad. It's really not. I'm surprised by that.
It's not like I'm spending $3.5 million on the first Black Spider-Man page.
Yeah. I bet you're kicking yourself for that one, aren't you?
I was overbid by that much. just barely missed it.
We all make mistakes, man.
Look, I gave it my all. I'm glad you brought up Jeff Lemire, though, because he's also on my short stack. The 5th issue of May's book came out. And this is spectacular. It's a completely different type of story than what Jeff Lemire is doing over at DC with his superhero stuff, or even over at Dark Horse with his Black Hammer stuff. This is very much more internalized, very much about grief and loss, and a father looking, trying to find a way to reconnect himself to the child that he's lost and realizing that he's lost himself in the process. And it's really a story about a reclamation of this man's life. It's spectacular. The metaphor of the maze works really, really well. So, it should be out in hardcover pretty soon. Go grab it because it's really, really fun. And that's Dark Horse Comics as well. Number 5 of Echo Lands over at Image Comics. Are you still reading this? So Echo Lands is the book. It's written and drawn by J.H. Williams III with Hayden Blackman, and Dave Stewart and Todd Klein helping out as a creative team. All-star cast creative team. It's done in the I don't know if you remember, I think we talked about the first issue, but
yep,
it's done in like the widescape format. Dude, it's been incredible all throughout. They keep bringing in all of these different tropes and these different things, and J.H. Williams he draws in different styles. So on the same page, he'll have something akin to an Archie comic, a character from an Archie comic, and then right next to it he has a vampire who's drawn in Bernie Wrightson style. He's got giant like transforming mechs that look like Transformers from like the 90s animated stuff. He'll draw stuff that looks like it's neo-organic material, almost something that you would see out of like a recent Swamp Thing book, and he puts all of that on the same page in panel breakouts that are just insane. Like this man does not have a straight line in this book. It's phenomenal. In this particular one, your main character ends up going to the home planet of these robots, and sacrifices have to be made to get off because these robots have set up shop in this place, because in every piece of fiction that they've ever been able to tether into, the robots, when they're around humans, they turn bad, and they don't want to turn bad, so they sequester themselves away, and the very presence of this guy being there makes them think that they're going to turn bad, so they need to kill him or get him off the planet. So really, really cool story, man. And last but not least, certainly not least, I don't think I spoke about this one before, but if I did, stop me. I'm just getting mixed up because I'm tired. But Darkhold Omega, did I talk about this last time?
I don't recall.
So, they did this Darkhold thing, and I think I spoke about Darkhold Alpha, but this is Darkhold Omega. And essentially it picks up on this Lovecraftian theme of there being a book. It's covered in, human skin. Well, in Darkhold Omega, this is the wrap up to that. In that book, they released it, and it created like all of this like very 90s inspired bad versions of the Avengers. These Darkholds, Darkhold Blade, Darkhold, Wasp, and what have you. This wraps that up, and they solve all the problems. But they do something really cool with Scarlet Witch, really, really cool, which makes her even more powerful than she already was. So between this book, because as far as I can tell, this is in canon, between this book and the end of Trial of Magneto, there's some really cool stuff happening with Scarlet Witch. Like she's like, they have reset her in a way that makes her pretty badass. And I mean, in my opinion, she was already badass, but like she's now a major player in the universe. Like she's kind of Doctor Strange level, and she's Doctor Strange level in a sense that she's got her shit worked out, because that's something that she's never really had. Her everything's always chaos, and she's barely holding it together. She's got it together in this, and they just packed her full of power. So like I didn't read any of the individual issues in the midst of this, because they did like single issues for each of the characters. I just did Alpha and Omega, but man, it was cool, and the art I can't scoff at it. It was good stuff.
Nice.
So, but that is my short stack. Really good stuff all around. So we got together this week like we normally do. Actually, I won't even say like we normally do. We kind of drew names out of a hat with this one. It was kind of a light week last week. There were a couple of things that came out that we were toying with. I feel like we've been doing big two stuff more often than not on our roundtables, or at least big three. Like usually we'll do an image book. So there was a new book that came out from Vault that I was like, let's try this. This might be something fun. It's called We Ride Titans. And before we get into it, I just want to say, like, we are going to talk about some of the details, some of the nuts and bolts of these Titans. See what I did there? That was a good pun. Yeah, we're going to get into the welds, so to speak, of these. So if you haven't read this yet, and I encourage you to go check it out and judge for yourself on what the book's merits are, and then compare and contrast what we have to say with it, and then get back to us. But if you haven't read it yet, go do so. That's been your friendly spoiler warning. But the book is, like I said, it's called We Ride Titans. It's written by Trace Dean, drawn by Sebastian Perez, D. Cunif, who I'm very familiar with, did the colors on this book, and Jim Campbell did the letters. Again, I think I said this. It's published by Vault Comics, who I'm in love with, man. Vault continues to just make me really, really, really happy with their stuff. So before we really dig in, kind of give me your overview of it. What'd you think?
I mean, I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a kaiju fan. I'm indifferent to kaiju. I
Right.
don't hate the kaiju. The kaiju doesn't grate me in any way. I'm a kaiju neutral. So, but the art was great. I thought it was written well. So, I think the crux of the story is, we've written a story for the kaiju fan. So, if you are such, I think that's where this story is going to grab you. There's other elements to the story that, we'll get into, but it just feels like it's a kaiju fan story.
Yeah. That's actually a better review than I thought you were going to give it. There were several moments reading this. I was like, yeah, I don't think this is Matt's cup of tea. And it wasn't because of the kaiju or the big mechs or anything. It was there was a lot of just one-on-one talking head conversations in this book. Just a lot of quiet conversations, very down to very personalized, that tethered into the kaiju and the stuff, but just a lot of quiet conversation, which we've seen in Vault before. They're really good at that. They did that in the plot, they did that in the autumnal, but then they back it up with some action. So I thought it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun. I was pleasantly surprised in the fact that it wasn't all hyperactive, super kinetic, all kaiju all the time. I'm glad they gave us some more meat to the people who are in the mechs. And this kind of the world that they live in. We had Ultra Mega this past year, and Ultra Mega was fantastic. And it was the opposite of this. It was just go for the gut. Everything's moving all the time. Super big, everything, explosions, wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. And this was a slower, more personified story. And I really appreciated that. So let's kind of talk about what this story is. So in the world, like, they're not rewriting the mech kaiju mythos or the trope, if you will. This is a world where kaiju attack major cities, and the cities have big mechs, almost like the Jaegers in Pacific Rim, where they're operated by people, and they fight back. That's the cut of it. They're not breaking new ground. They're not reinventing anything. That's just kind of what it is. And in this particular city that we're in, the mech is operated by this guy named Deej. I'm DEJ. I'm calling him Deej. That's the best I could kind of pronounce him. And he's a younger dude, kind of a hothead, doesn't like to listen to folks, and he's fighting this kaiju, and he's slipping, man. Like, he's making mistakes. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And as he's talking to his handlers, who's his dad, on the other side of the line, and they're trying to figure out why he hasn't overcome this kaiju like he should have, and how this kaiju has kind of gotten the upper hand a little bit. They kind of come to the conclusion and realize that Deej has been drinking on the job. Deej is operating this drunk. And it's causing damage to the cities. It's costing people their lives, because he didn't stop it fast enough. And it's a bad deal in general, but it brings shame to his family name, because in this world, the the kaiju started off from not a kaiju. The mech started off from a place of being like family owned mechs, where they were part of the crest of the family, and they were handed down to be the protectorate of the city, almost very much like a samurai situation, feudal Japan. Except in the modern world that we live in, that's gone by the wayside. More and more, they have turned over the control of the mechs and the practice of protecting the cities to the municipalities themselves, and so it's you know they're it's almost like a police force. But in this particular city, Deej's family still operates the robot, operates the big mech, and so you know he has almost laid the groundwork for a really good excuse why they should rip the protectorate away from his family, why they should displace him and his dad as being people who operate this giant robot and who protect the city, which is just bad news for people who want to think of this as a family legacy. But Deej is not an only child. Deej has a sister named Kit. And right off the bat, the book lets you know Kit is a lesbian. She is living with her partner. They are, you know, they're very happy in their very monotonous life, where Deej's life seems like it's, you know, bang boom kapow all the time. It's larger than life. It's big giant mechs. Their life is very seemingly mundane, and purposely so. Kit has actually kind of renounced the family business, and in a lot of ways renounced the family. And there seems like there's some bad blood now. You know, maybe it's just conditioning on my part. Maybe it's, you know, my own experience, and I read into this kind of stuff. But you know, it is very easy to think that the bad blood might be because she's a lesbian, you know, and her family did not accept that. They kind of rejected that. I think that there's some things there that you could consider subtext to hint at that, but nothing explicitly says that. I don't remember seeing. So, you know, who knows? Anyway, there's just bad blood there. Well, her partner comes and wakes her up, and she says, "You're going to need to come watch this." And of course, it's on the news. It's everywhere. This has just been blown up. It's turned into a big spectacle, a big debacle, and you know, especially the fact that people know her brother was drunk. He was drunk on the job. So they kind of, you know, she begrudgingly, I think, to a point, goes back and gets in touch with her dad, who has been trying to reach her. In fact, sends her mother to come talk to her, which, you know, you're like, okay, so your mom came and talked to you. It almost seems like it's dirty play the way it's done, though. She's estranged from the family. She doesn't want to see them. The mom was sent, I think, because it's more to smooth things over. And was it just me, Matt, or was like, I had a hard time believing just from the visuals that was her mom.
Same.
Yeah, they looked like the same. Like, maybe, I mean, this could be a stepmom, but they looked very much the same age.
Yes, very much. I had to reread that page twice. I'm like, Mom?
Yeah, I did too. Because I was just like, wait, no, those are definitely like they might have been in preschool together. I wasn't completely sure what was happening with that. But again, it may just be the way it's drawn. The type of art is very, it doesn't fill up with a lot of detail. I think as far as the line work goes, a lot of the detail was left for the colorist to do. So there's not a lot of line work. A lot of it was just done with shading. And D. Cuniff did a fine job with the colors, but I think that there needed to be some more texture, some more line, something done there to really distinguish the fact that this person has to be, you know, upwards of, you know, I mean, given the situation, like 14 to 18 to 20 years older than this character.
So along those lines, I got the impression that this artist really liked drawing kaijus and really didn't like drawing people.
I kind of got that as well. Yeah, I picked up on some of that as well, which is, you know, cool for a particular type of book, but the kaiju aren't front and center in this book. They're not on the main stage. The fact that there are kaiju are totally a backdrop for all of this. And so, you know, she kind of takes the bait a little bit. Kit does. She goes to talk to her dad. Also, her dad kind of looks like Dwayne Johnson as he's sitting there. Like, I think there might have been some photo ref in that, which is really funny. Like, you think of this style of art, very much in the vein of Vault, very much a digital look to it. But as I see it, I'm like, okay, you were looking at Dwayne Johnson when you drew that. And she goes and talks to him, and they have this moment where they're, like I said, there's bad blood. There's a lot of tension built up very well in the story. I would add, like, that was one of the strongest points of this story, is the way that the tension was built. And so she basically accepts the offer that they're giving her. And she says, look, okay, we want to do this. You want to keep it in the family. I'll do it. I'll jump in the mech. I'll be the one who is protecting the city. I'll be the wall. In exchange, you're going to do something for me. You're going to shut up and let me handle this. Let me take the front seat. Like, you're going to say as few words as possible, and quit trying to live vicariously through your children, is some of the gist I got. But just quit being overbearing. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So, let me talk to my brother, and then let me in that mech. So, and that's where the first issue leaves off. Again, man, I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah.
Like I said, I actually appreciated the fact that it did not focus so heavy on the big thing, like on the quote unquote nerd things. Like, it really did focus on these really human relationships, in a way that I think normalizes the fact that this is a world with giant monsters and giant robots, more than anything. I mean, you read a lot of mech stories, you read a lot of kaiju stories, and they have to make these things very large, very larger life. But even in a movie like Pacific Rim, or all the source material for Pacific Rim, they have to show you that these people are experienced and know what they're doing, but they have to present it in a way that it's like, oh my God, did you just see that? It's a blockbuster moment. This doesn't really have the blockbuster moment. The kaiju and the mechs are very just nonchalant, with the way they're depicted and talked about and thrown in there. The human relationships really are the star of this show, and I appreciated that in a big way. I would be lying if I wasn't saying I wasn't a little bit disappointed in the design of the mechs. I always, they weren't as complex. They were kind of simple. It just looks like a big thing with kind of an exoskeleton, a little tube welded frame around it. Very industrial. And I think in real life, if we had these things, that's probably what they would look like. So I think that there is a sense of realism in the science and the science fiction of it. But I'm such a fan of design in these books, and especially in Vault comics, where in the plot you had this weird swamp monster, and the design was just out of this world good. In the Vampire the Masquerade books, the designs of the werewolves and stuff are great. And so I was really looking for like a blow my socks off design in this. But in saying that, we also only saw one kaiju. And so we may be getting a really cool design, this something, that really is going to grab your eye in a future issue. So we can't completely rule that out. But that was the only thing. I was just like, when I saw the mechs, I was just like, oh, okay, it's a tool. It's a tool in this world. It's not flashy. Things are like safety yellow and beige. It is a tool. This is a bulldozer, so to speak. Which makes sense. I mean, like I said, I'm wanting my cake and eating it too. So, but that's just kind of where I went with it, man. I'm gonna stay on this though. It's really easy for Vault to pull me in right now, because I'm like wearing the Vault logo these days. So I'm gonna follow this up and check out some more of it.
Like I said, I mean, I'm a one and done with this one. It's just but it's not because I thought it was poorly done. It just didn't. There's just nothing about the story that really roped me in, frankly. But the basis of the story being kaiju, is really the thing of it. I just have no, I don't know, it's just never been a compelling thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm a subset of the nerd culture. I'm
Well,
not.
dude, honestly, you
fan.
and I we're similar in that regard. I've never been like a huge Godzilla fan. I've seen a lot of the films, of especially the more modern films, but like, we have friends who eat, sleep, and breathe these things. Big monsters, cryptics, whatever you want to call it, cryptoids or whatever they're called,
Yeah.
kaiju. And I just never was. I never really launched into that kind of stuff.
I liked it a lot when I was, younger. I was hardly a fanatic, but I really liked it. Whenever the quote new Godzilla movie came out, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie came
Yeah.
out. Not so good. I've never met a person that liked that one. But in the most recent history, when Godzilla was reintroduced, I was interested in that just simply because now they can do so much more with it than they've ever been able to in the past, just because of the quality of special effects. So I watched, the quote most recent standalone Godzilla movie and really liked that, the one with Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was really good.
And yeah, I thought that one was a lot of fun. Watched the King Kong. I watched the Peter Jackson King Kong movie. I watched the follow-up King Kong movie, Skull Island. And but since then I haven't watched any other kaiju movies.
Yeah, that's I think we've seen about the same number of them.
Yeah.
That's just because, like I said, there's other things I want to watch and not enough time.
Yeah, I did start Pacific Rim and didn't finish it.
It's not. I personally don't like the film. I know a lot of people who love it. I was not impressed whatsoever.
It just wasn't. Yeah, I was just like, it didn't rope me in. I was like, yeah, I will do something else.
But it's one of those things. I like when my friends like things. So if you're a person who loved that film, I'm not knocking it by any means. I mean, there's lots of stuff that I love that nobody else gives a shit about. For me, when it comes to kaiju, I'm way more interested in like the nonfiction side of why, especially Japanese culture, is obsessed with these things and how it ties in with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And literally nuclear fallout at the end of World, or right before Japan surrendered in World War II, is why so much of we have so much of this, and why that culture became so obsessed with like nuclear powered giant creatures. Like that history to me is way more compelling a read, way more compelling a study than the actual kaiju themselves. So, but. Well, tell me about something you read this week, man. I want to hear some comics that just made you giddy.
So, didn't exactly make me giddy, but one that I recommend that I'm going to talk about, and it's current. I didn't dig through the archives. Is from Marvel, Daredevil Woman Without Fear.
Nice.
Chip Zdarsky and artist Rafael de la Torre. Maybe I mispronounced that, probably. Colorist by Federico Blee and Clayton Cowles on letters. So I picked this up because Chip Zdarsky was attached to it.
Right.
And what he's done with Daredevil has been so good. And, Daredevil's never been a character I've been super interested in. I was I've read, some Daredevil here and there. Just never was like a super fan. But what Chip Zdarsky's run, and then he's worked with a few different artists, mostly Marco Cicchetto, has been great. It's been great. So I picked it up based on that. And what's going on, and this is a continuation, or maybe a side story, I should say, of the of the current Daredevil storyline. For a time during the last series, penned, written by Zdarsky, Daredevil had to go to prison. So Elektra picked up the helm of Daredevil, donned the suit, swore she wouldn't kill anybody, and essentially starts doing, quote, Daredevil's job. Well, Daredevil's out of prison. However, vigilantism is now illegal within the city limits. So all the other superhero / vigilantes, Frank Castle is notably absent, by the way, are teaming up and trying to figure out how to handle this. Meanwhile, she goes to confront Kingpin, and she breaks into Kingpin's office and confronts him at his desk, and she's battling with herself whether to kill him or not, and how much that would solve all the problems. But she's made a promise to Matthew Murdock not to kill anybody. So she ultimately decides not to. Meanwhile, he is letting her know that he is, I guess you would say, hired somebody to cause her some grief. So she spends the issue trying to figure out who this is. She essentially kind of, starts to haunt the location she's known for, including Columbia University.
Mm-hmm.
Runs across an old acquaintance, goes to lunch, having some empty chit chat, and there's a woman standing across the street glaring at her, and her face essentially goes white, and she immediately leaves this dinner, pursue this woman. Turns out this woman, as the series goes on to explain, is the one who, the one who initially recruited her into the Hand.
Oh.
And, she's pursuing this woman to question her into why are you here? Are you the one that Kingpin was spoken about? Ultimately, on to be led on a wild goose chase that ends with her in the middle of a wooded area, confronted by the actual person that is ultimately after her. And I won't spoil that because it happens on the last page.
Okay.
And I definitely want to see how this issue ends. I believe this is only a 3-issue series. It's a very brief little mini series. And the character that we see at the end is not somebody that we see very often, and we've not seen at all in quite a while. But I don't know anybody that doesn't like the character, frankly. So I can't wait to see how Chip Zdarsky writes this character, let alone this short little arc. So, the art is great. The Marvel is actually would have to try to find a poor artist at this point. I think they have just a great stable of artists.
Oh, it's ridiculous, man.
The narrative is the narrative, I didn't realize until I went back and reread it, is very text heavy, but I didn't realize that when I first read it.
Okay. That's
because
interesting.
Chip Zdarsky is such a good writer. I didn't realize I was reading that much text.
Right.
It's easy to read, and everything flows really well, and it's compelling. So, that's worth noting, because if you pick up the book and flip through it, some people be like, I don't know, man, kind of text heavy.
The word bitch, yeah.
Yeah, I recommend it. Even so, again, just because the quality of the writing is so good, and the art as well, obviously. So keep an eye out for this one. Chip Zdarsky's stuff sells really well.
Mm-hmm.
This may very well disappear off the shelf by the time the buzz gets out about who this character is that's in the, makes an appearance on the final page.
Yeah.
But I recommend this one, no doubt about it. And it's got to be really compelling for me to recommend a $5 book.
No shit. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I may grab this since you said that. I really enjoyed, and I don't know if you read it, the Daredevil Man Without Fear mini series that came right before Zdarsky started his full Daredevil run. They did it was like a 6-issue mini series in between. It was Soul's run, and when Zdarsky started. And the miniseries was excellent, and it was called Man Without Fear. So the fact that this one's called Woman Without Fear, I wonder if they're using some of the similar kind of things in it.
I mean, remember the original subtitle to Daredevil was Man Without Fear.
Yeah. Well, but the reason I say that is the cover of the book that you just showed me looks a lot like, it's like the same format and stuff. The same layouts and same design. Not the same, but it looks a lot like that. The one that was in that mini series. So I was curious if it's supposed to cap something in the way that one did.
I couldn't speak to that.
Um, well, now you said that you didn't go back and dig through the archives, and I'm glad you didn't because I did. And I grabbed something that I think you're going to be excited about. Like I think it's gonna make you smile. The fact that I read this and the fact that I had this on my shelf, I think I'm going to make you proud of me. And that's my endeavor. I said I'm going to read this, and it's going to make Matt beam. I mean, you're already glowing. We've talked about the filter, so got it. So I read this week from the year 2016. So it's not super back in the archives, but it's a couple years old. This was published by Image Comics.
That's 6 years ago at this point. Can you believe that?
Oh my God. I can, and I don't like it. Damn it.
Sorry.
It is back in the archives. But it's called Adventures in the Rifle Brigade. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, indeed I have.
All right. This is written by the great Garth Ennis. And this is drawn, and look, anytime you have a book where Garth Ennis is writing it, and for me, that is not the strongest draw. That's saying something. This book was drawn by Carlos Esquerra.
Thank you very much.
Who is top 3, probably my favorite 2000 AD Judge Dredd artist.
Yeah,
definitely top 3. Probably my favorite. Like I'm looking at the giant tome of Carlos Esquerra's Judge Dredd stuff on my bookshelf right now. Love the guy. Miss seeing the guy's work. I was so sad when he passed away. But so yeah, they got together and they made this story incorporating a subject matter that Garth Ennis knows very, very well, and something that he writes very, very well, like these war comics. But if you've ever read a Garth Ennis war comics, he takes that very seriously. He writes war comics. He doesn't play around with them. They are not his. They are not The Boys. They are not Preacher. They are historically accurate. That there's a gravamen to them. Like he's not playing around. There's no jokes or anything like that. This is not that kind of war comic. This is it's not. It's not satirical. It is irreverent though. It uses all the jokes. It pokes fun at everybody who was part and parcel of World War II. It really, really jabs at, I think, the pretentiousness of a certain sect of British culture, and it jabs at the Americans who think about British culture as pretentious. So he's really playing on a couple different levels here. And I ate it up, man. I thought it was excellent. So again, I want to throw out that Patricia Mulvihill did the colors and Kevin Summers helped out with that. Clem Robbins did the letters, and take a wild guess on, I'm going to name 2. So you have an easy 50-50 shot. Who did some of the original covers of this?
You're going to name 2?
Well, I'm going to name 2. Take it. See, I was going to see if you could guess one.
The original covers. Steve Dillon?
No, close. I can see why you guessed that though. Brian Boland did one of the original covers, and Glenn Fabry did some of the covers. So part and parcel of both 2000 AD, that British wave, and Garth Ennis stuff. So you were really keeping those friends close. But this story is really about a British Black Ops team called the Rifle Brigade, made up of some people who are not fit for public consumption. Let's just put it that way. They are these are not the best of the best, but they are maybe the best at what they do. They are all, in some level, very flawed, broken people in the most ridiculous and caricaturistic ways. The team is led by Captain the Honorable Hugo Kyber Darcy. He is, he's got distinguishing features like a giant mustache and a glint in his eye. He's a man's man in this era. He is proper British, stiff upper lip, let them see nothing, man's man, soldier, warrior, poet, everything. His kind of number 2, his second lieutenant, is Cecil Milk, whose name is quote unquote doubtful. And this man is a closet case if there ever was one. This is a dude who is the idea of him being with a woman strains every ounce of credulity that you could put into a book. And the man dreams of dick on a constant basis, but is also, he's closeted. He's trying to keep it under wraps. He is ultimately in love with Hugo Darcy, wants nothing more than to just be with that man. In fact, every time something happens, and it sets up an ongoing trope throughout all 6 issues, where they'll be in a wreck or somebody will shoot at them and something, and you'll just see Cecil, and like parts of him will appear to be broken, or he'll appear to be shot or near death, and Darby will run over and he'll cradle him, and he's like, oh, doubtful, my friend, my compatriot, like like, what can I help you do in this dire situation? Name anything. And every time Cecil and his dying wish is to like get a blowjob from Darcy, or to get jerked off by Darcy, or just something like ramrodded, like a good buggering is what he asked for at one point in time. And inevitably it comes out that like what they think is blood is just like ketchup and tomato juice, or what looked like a severed hand was somebody else's severed hand, and the dude's not, like, he doesn't have a scratch on him. He's just the most opportunistic shit ever. The tank of the group is this guy named Sergeant Crumb. He says no words except "yep" throughout the whole thing. That's it. He's this big, like Uncle Fester looking motherfucker, just giant and bald. Excels at things like expert neck wringing. He can just like pinch your head off with one hand. His foil, I don't, not his foil. The rest of the crew. You've got a very working man's man, bomb engineer kind of guy named Geezer, who only says "you're all water," like he's got a very gravelly voice. The only word, like it's some form of "you're out of order," and that's the only lines he says. They have an American on the team. His name is Hank the Yank. His only words are ever "God damn it," GAWD. And then last but not least, the team mascot, the bard of the group, is this Scottish guy who just walks around with bagpipes, doesn't say a word, but just murders with his bagpipes. And they're, like I said, they're a black ops team, and they are ridiculous as can be. They find themselves in incredibly dire situations that no one could feasibly get off of. The book begins with them jumping out of, they're being paratroopers. They're jumping out of a whatever the British C-137 is, that version, in the middle of a bomb raid over Berlin. Like, they're behind enemy lines, and they're literally, as they're cascading down, they're dodging bombs, and they end up behind enemy lines, and they start putting the pieces together of their mission. And come to find out, this has all just been one big communication breakdown. They were actually like, they were supposed to be going to one of their buddies' bachelor parties, but they were speaking in code, and they thought they were speaking in war code. And so they convinced each other that they needed to go on this bombing raid. But while they're there, they just so happen to overhear some of the Fuhrer's more shady people behind the lines talking about weapons and this plant that has the V2 gas, and how they're loading the V2 gas into rockets, and they know about the plans for D-Day, and they're going to launch the rockets at Normandy, and it's going to completely change the course of the war. They're going to kill all the Allies. And while these ne'er-do-wells and these misfits are over there, they accidentally foil that plan, and make some enemies along the way. One of the enemies they make is this very Elvira looking bombshell dominatrix of a Nazi woman, who is just out for blood. And they don't know this, but she is part of Hitler's, the side of the Reich that really bought into the mysticism, right? Like they were part of that otherworldly, looking for the Holy Grail and that aspect of things. And she's on a particular mission to reclaim something that Hitler has lost. And that thing has a lot of intrinsic value to its own mythology. Whoever possesses this thing is indefeatable. And it turns out that what this MacGuffin is, this this Maltese Falcon is in this is Hitler's missing testicle that has been lost to the ages, and so they all scramble to get out and find it. The Allies are looking for it, the Americans are looking for it. There's just all kinds of just brutality surrounded by the hunting down of Hitler's missing testicle. Eventually they find it, but they all kind of culminate and find it at once. And then they find it in the palace of a sultan, of a Middle Eastern sultan, who has, is basically willing to sell it off. And wants to, either is willing to sell it off or wants to keep it for himself for his own militaristic endeavors. But he doesn't realize that he has been converged on by three sides from, the Americans, the British, and the Nazis who are coming to reclaim this. And just following through with all the issues in the most hilarious way possible. Our boys do in fact get a hold of the testicle. Not in the way they wanted to, but in quite the hilarious way. It's funny, it's irreverent. I basically gave you the overview of like all the first 6 issues, instead of just talking about one at a time. I picked up the trade paperback. That's how I came across this story. It's Garth Ennis writing the kind of irreverent comedy that he does really, really well. In this time, he reined in on some of the edgelordy stuff that he can tend to do. There's still some in here, like he makes some inappropriate jokes. Like there are some gay jokes about the dude who's closeted and what he is and who he's supposed to be and how he would be seen at this time. There's some jokes about women and this, that, and the other. They're all tongue in cheek, but they're not done in an edgelord kind of way, like he did with, say, The Boys. The Boys, I've said before, I've read it. I think it's spectacular. It's not my favorite series done by him. And that's just personal taste. I think he kind of jumped the shark with it a little bit. And I think that's what he meant to do. Like, I think he fulfilled his purpose.
Yeah, well, Garth Ennis's style is to jump the shark. He writes extreme things, and he likes really raunchy, dirty humor.
Yeah,
it's like pushing everything beyond the pale is exactly what Garth Ennis likes to do, specifically with his humor-based stuff. It's like the more outrageous, the more Garth Ennis it is.
He almost gives you the prim and proper English version of dirty, raunchy, and outrageous in this. Like,
and something he did in this that you alluded to that he really likes to do is write stories that feature characters that can't speak the English language very well.
Yeah, at all.
Whether that be because they have an impediment or because they have a strong drawl or brogue, or that, he loves writing characters where you're having to like read the dialogue and think, well, okay, what is he saying? And sometimes I'm not successful. I'm like, I can't tell what the hell this character is saying.
Yeah, Arseface, Dinkledupe, or whoever, like the grandson of Jesus was, that comes to mind. But man, just for me though, the real draw, the thing about this is it's Esquiera. I love Esquiera's art. His ability to tell a story, his own caricature elements that he draws in, where he just he brings out over exaggeration he does of people's noses and their teeth, and it's almost a cartooning style, but without being juvenalian. I think that's the way I would put it. But there's the humor is juvenalian, but his style is not. If you look at it, there's just the right amount of texture and stuff in the same spot. It's absolutely stunning. The way that he draws these uniforms, his design, the clothes that he has, the way that he lays out the page, to really draw your eye to these really ridiculous moments. I mean, and it doesn't matter if he's drawing a picture of a guy cracking a whip and popping out his own eye, or one of my favorite panels from the book is when the guys have gone on sabbatical for a few weeks and he's got to round them back up to go hunt down the Hitlerian testicle. The Piper, the Scottish bagpipe guy, has a lair in a well where he just like hangs out with like a mole man, and just does things and designs. He gets a piece of haggis and he puts it on the end of a hook and he goes fishing for him. And the way Esquiera draws that, while at the same time, I mean, delivering just landscapes and stuff that are beautiful, and like the way he draws these cars and the German tanks and the uniforms, like it is a very exaggerated type of cartooning, but with an eye for detail, like an eye for historically accurate shape and delivery that is just, it's incredible, man.
That's why he and Garth Ennis work together so often. Garth Ennis doesn't tolerate nobody just phoning it in. So he went back and worked with Carlos Esquerra over and over again because he's so dependable and he frankly does his job so well.
He brings an extra level to it, man. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book. If you can get it, if you can find it, I highly recommend anybody read it. Like I said, it's a little bit of an older book. You might be able to scour the internets and stuff and get a hold of it, but it is an Image comic, so it shouldn't be that hard. One of the things that I've read most recently from Ennis that has filled me with the most joy as I've read it. Nice. Like I had the most, like I haven't, A Walk Through Hell was probably the last Ennis thing I think I read other than some Punisher stuff. I can't remember where it came. That did, that was great. Don't get me wrong. Like that was fantastic, but this made me smile as I was reading it. Like I brought this brought me enjoyment and levity as I was reading it in a time that I kind of needed it. So
yeah,
solely and happily on board with that, and highly recommend people read it. So I brought the Garth Ennis. What?
Me? Weird.
I know. What a world.
Stealing my gimmick, man.
Hey, look, I'm just 2022 is throwing us curveballs. So
I like to think I inspire.
I do try to walk in your footsteps.
Well, I can't recommend that.
What's that one poem is, you're walking on the beach and there's only one set of footsteps to know that you're walking the steps of God, that kind of thing.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm deitizing you as what's happening. So, but all right. So all that was fun. Great comics and stuff, man. Need to check out that Daredevil book. So thank you for talking about it and recommending it. Let's kind of close out the show the way we always do a little bit and talk about something we've got coming down the pipeline. What's coming out next week for New Comic Book Day that you're interested in?
Well, I think one of the main reasons we do this podcast is to talk about books that may not get enough attention, that may fly under the radar. So I like to think we have a positive influence on creators. So with that line of thinking, I'm going to recommend from DC, Batman. The Night, #1, by Chip Zdarsky and Carmine Di Giandomenico.
Yeah,
probably mispronounced that. So this is a 10-issue series all about Bruce Wayne's early formative years and how he turned from a angry young man to world's greatest detective. That's right, kids. One more Batman book on the shelf.
from an angry young man to an angry old man.
But Chip Zdarsky is writing Batman. That is bait that I cannot help but bite on. So,
So it's called Batman the Night.
Indeed.
I think they're running out of Batman title options.
Indeed.
Yeah. I think we're reaching the bottom of that well. So, all right. Well, you went DC. I'm going to take us Marvel on this. So covering all of our bases here. Next week at your local comic shop, or wherever you pick up your comics, you should be able to purchase yourself a pretty copy of She-Hulk #1.
I saw this.
Yeah, the new series by Rainbow Ralph, Roge Antonia, and Jen Bartel. Looks great. Big fan of She-Hulk. I'm a fan of all things Hulk. How much of this is going to spin out of what we've been seeing She-Hulk do in the Avengers, or where She-Hulk played into Immortal Hulk, or what's happening now, have no idea. But it's been a little bit since we've had a She-Hulk title. And I'm all about some Jennifer Walters. So
well, apparently this series, she is settling back into her quote normal life.
Yeah.
And she's no longer the raging Hulk. She's going back to the original Jennifer Walters lawyer Hulk.
Well, and
So,
we just saw that, like, I forget which title it was, but we just saw her get like deraged or whatever, like degammed, to where it turned her back into her more slender, sleek self in a book. I forget which Marvel book that was, though.
yeah.
I don't know if it was an Avengers book or if it was in one of the extras, some special or whatever, but there was a moment where she turns back into what we saw, back in the day, in some of her more famed titles. So, but yeah, she's coming back, man, and she's got a career to rebuild, like you said. So, connecting with friends, breaking the fourth wall, getting back into some of that really fun, comical She-Hulk, hopefully that we all fell in love with. So, go check it out. I'm excited. I'm gonna push for that to be our book of the week next week, but I got to make sure we're having a book of the week next week. Got to look at the calendar because we might have something special coming up.
Yeah, teaser, kids. Teaser.
Yeah. Speaking of which, have you been working on that?
I have. I sat down and worked on it last night.
I got my spreadsheet up.
So, I haven't reached spreadsheet. I'm in the design phase.
Okay. I see you putting in work. I appreciate it. And so, yeah, what we're alluding to, we've got our wrap up of 2021 coming up. So we've told you about it. Get your list ready and compare and contrast. And in the meantime, you can come talk about all the comics you want to, all the TV shows you want to, all the video games, all the whatevers in the world, the movies, on our Facebook group. You can come check us out. We're Southern Fried Geekery on that. Just look us up. We're there. Join the team. Post, talk, be merry. If you want to follow stuff that we're reading, panels and stuff that I get thrown up there every once in a while, we're at SFG Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to throw in some recommendations for best of, shoot us an email. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And I can't wait, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate you all hanging in here with us for this one, coming back and seeing us week after week. You guys make this show fun. You find folks who listen to the show. Matt, I want to say thank you for helping me through what is probably going to be an abbreviated version of the show, because I am tired. So, and just thanks for everybody for coming back week after week. Still, we want to send out some love to Craig's family. They're still dealing with that, some illness in the family. So he's taking care of that like he should be. So love you, buddy. Love your whole family. So, and with all that being said, man, go forth and love some comics.
Phrase of the day is Hitlerian testicle.
Yeah, yes. That I don't know if that's going to be the title of the show or not, but it should be. So.